This was a big day for me. So I graduated finance in 2001, but I've never been to the McMillan building, and I've never been to Benton, which is where 2 engineering classes were that I spoke at today. So either those people are really smart, or we're the smart ones, and we are in different schools. But anyway, it's funny, spending 4 years, never been in those buildings. Let me grab this. All right, so let me tell you about what I'd like to discuss today. So first, who am I? I'll give you a little bit more background so that you guys can understand why I think that this is so important. What's ESG? Why now? Why does this matter now for you guys? What are companies doing about it? But why am I in this classroom at this particular moment? And then lastly, what's it mean for you guys? Okay? All right, so a little bit about me. Born in Cincinnati. Any Bengals fans? Who dey? Good game yesterday, right? So I came to Miami, graduated 2001 with a finance degree, got hired by Ernst & Young, went back to school, got my accounting degree at Notre Dame, and have worked with Ernst & Young. Anyone in the audience heard of Ernst & Young, maybe trying to get internships? Okay, good. One of the great Big Four firms. Again, all the firms are great. Happy to answer any questions about that. As we're going through, think of some questions. I'll open it up if you have any at the end, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. Talk a little bit about my client base. I put some industries on the far right. All I'm just trying to say, guys, is I've served a lot of different public companies, private companies, in Cincinnati, in the Netherlands, in Cleveland, entrepreneurial companies, startup companies, in every one of the sectors over here to the right. And all I'm trying to help people appreciate is you guys are likely going to get a job in one of those over there, right? So I feel like in 21 plus years, I have a good appreciation for where business has been and where it is going. And again, my goal is to give an opportunity to you guys, all right? So I'm on the Miami University Accounting Advisory Group. That's a little bit of a spoiler alert as to why I'm here today. So we'll get to that later. All right, so EY. So most of you are familiar, but I want to spin this a little bit to talk about ESG and the things that we have. So we have some goals up there in the top right. We also feel like the planet's pretty important to us, and so we're working towards those. But as a multidisciplinary firm right there in the middle, we get to assist a lot of different clients with all of the issues stretching from consulting, strategy, M&A transactions, advisory on risk management, IT, legal, HR, audit, reporting, tax, etc. Now, I have to imagine some of you are accounting majors. Some of you may know that you want to go into Big Four, audit, tax. Some of you are marketing, econ, finance, and everything else. And that's great. And that's, again, part of the reason why I'm here is because there's such a broad swath of majors that sits in this class, which is really, really important for where you guys sit relative to maybe getting a job in a couple of years. All right, so at the bottom, there's just some accolades about the firm. Again, keep in mind, I was talking to engineers today that they probably don't really know who Ernst & Young is, not the same way that most of you in the business buildings do. All right, on the bottom right, I just wanted to show, hey, look, all of us are great firms, and I know some of you guys may have allegiances to other firms, and that's not why I'm here, but I just want you to be familiar with the organizations that are going to be solving the problems that I'm going to talk about today around ESG. Okay, so I'm going to switch back. What is ESG? Does anyone know? We had a little trouble in the engineering class this morning, especially at 8:30. What's the E stand for? Yell it out. Environmental, good. What about S? Social. G. Governance. Okay, so I highlighted in yellow at the top of this, sustainability. Anyone ever heard that word used, right? About companies being sustainable. I did that because some people will get confused, like, is this sustainability, is it ESG, are they the same thing? I like to think of it as, without those three factors, without those three columns or boxes up there, your company will not be sustainable. Okay, so I get to sit inside of the four walls of a lot of different clients, and sometimes it's hard when you have to go look at those C-suite executives and say, if you don't make changes, you're not going to be around. Okay? And so we're going to talk a little bit about the forces that are at play right now. This is coming so fast. And you guys get it because, first of all, you're in the generation that you want to make a difference, and you're going to make a difference. and this is really important to you. It's important about the products that you buy, the companies you buy from, but that's not the world that you're entering into when you get a job. It's a little bit of folks like myself that are 20 years older and companies that are a little bit more mature and maybe a little bit slower in the way that they change. So this is really hard for them. And again, I'm going to get to the point, which is they don't know how to do it. They need help. They don't have the resources to do it. And so, again, we'll talk a little bit about why that creates a great opportunity for you. But what I want to show you on here, so if I look at the E, this is probably not our wheelhouse in the farmer school. This is where the engineering students kick butt, okay? They know how to do this kind of stuff. They know about climate risk and mitigation. They know how to quantify it, to measure it, to report on it. Those things over here in the E, that's where they do really well. This school of business is awesome at this side, okay? We're good at understanding business concepts, transparency, risk. But everyone at this university sits here in the middle. Everyone on the planet sits here in the middle. And that's why this is gaining speed at the rate that it is, because all of this is coming together. But without the E and the G, we can't get to a solution that really gets society around and comfortable with it, okay? And so that's one of the reasons why we came up with this minor. All right, everyone understand that? I'm going to assume that you guys get it, right? All right. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple things. ESG is not when it's convenient. This isn't casual Friday, jeans on Friday, like once a week kind of thing. This is like the way companies need to start doing business, because if they don't, they will become extinct. So I put a graphic up here that just shows a couple things. One, I like the circle in the middle because you've heard maybe reference to a circular economy where things stay within the loop, right? Same thing, closed loop, up and down, that white behind it. But why I put this is I want you guys to understand the trouble that companies are dealing with is this has never been this way, that the company at the top has a value and a mission statement, a business strategy and ESG strategy that's connected right there in the middle to something that's referred to as sustainability programs or ESG programs. They've never had it. They don't understand it. They work in silos. But now they can't. They have to understand how to talk to maybe those in the organizational model that structure HR programs, those down in the metrics and measures that report out to stakeholders, those in the C-suite that set goals and objectives for the organizations, those up in the top that are building the products, creating the safe, sustainable products. So at the bottom, you have all the stakeholders. You have investors, consumers, suppliers. And I put government because it's kind of like, well, where do you do business? In which jurisdiction, in which community, because that matters. It matters way more than it ever has. So again, this is hard for you guys to appreciate, but if I could jump up and down and tell you, I can't tell you how much opportunity there will be for you guys to help companies solve these problems, whether it's for big consulting firms like mine, or if it's at these companies that don't have any idea how to do this. They really don't. There's very few that do. Primarily, if I were to stereotype, I'd say it's consumer products companies, right? Because they just are connected to consumers like you guys, and they have to make sure that they address your demands. Okay, here's another one. This is simple for those business folks in the room because it basically just talks about top line, bottom line. You guys understand that with a results-based business school. But this isn't anymore a nice to have. ESG used to be 5 years ago, hey, this is really nice to have. Hey, let's hug a tree. That's great. No, now you have to do this because if you don't, you can't increase your top line. You can't mitigate your risks of potentially putting contaminants into the soil that will cost you all kinds of things down the road in the future. You have to understand what you can and can't do. And by the way, consumers like it when you're good stewards, right? So you build brand. So this sort of just shows this isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have, it's a business imperative. Okay, so the forces at work, this is what I think is really important for you guys to understand. Your timing is really good for this. First, you've probably heard of institutional investment firms like State Street, BlackRock, Vanguard, right? They're putting so much pressure on shareholders who hold stock in 401ks and the like to invest smartly, sustainably. And so those funds are actually returning higher returns than some of their peers. And so these guys are saying, if you don't do this, we no longer will buy your stock. That's pretty tough for a company. So older companies, mature companies are sitting there saying, man, how do we keep these investors interested? Well, you're not going to unless you have these guys behind you, okay? But this is the one that I think you guys will fully understand because you're part of it. So on the left-hand side, it's climate incidents. It's Hurricane Ian, right? So Hurricane Ian disrupted all kinds of things within the southeast part of the United States. And so I highlighted in yellow the volatility and related economic, social disruption associated with climate events. That's a really big driving force. We have more severe storms than we've ever had before, okay? So it's disruption to your customers, to your investors, employees, and communities. In the middle is you guys. And I realize you may not be fully appreciative of the generations that are already in the workforce that you're about to join, but they're very different. And they maybe don't behave or think the same way as you. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means it's different, right? And so you guys have grown up with, I want to be able to make a difference, and I want to be able to put my mark on this company, this organization, this society, my community, my planet. And that's a different mentality. And so, you know, we in the workforce are learning how to embrace that because of the value that that's going to bring us and our, you know, generations to come. But I just highlighted, you just have different expectations. And so that force of the generations that you guys have coming at us is changing the game. So the last one, this is what's bringing speed. So technology is changing how people hear about things, how they do things, how they advance things, and as a result, there's no longer an excuse for something not happening fast. And so what I have highlighted there is we're on the cusp of a revolution with technology, and these accelerating technological disruptions are raising questions about whether or not we're doing it the right way. Okay, so these are the forces that are making this kind of come like an avalanche, and again, that's really good for you guys. All right, so what are companies doing about this? Let me just show you one. This is a publicly available report. But this is the J.M. Smucker company. Anyone ever heard of J.M. Smucker, right? Like jellies, jams, stuff like that. They also have a few more brands in their arsenal. Circled there at the top. Dunkin', if you drink Dunkin' coffee, as long as you don't buy it in the store, they sold it to you. Peanut butter, Jif, right? And you have Pets, Meow Mix, Milk-Bone. Those are all that's their portfolio of products. My point being, they're in about 80 to 90% of consumer households because of the products that they sell. Well, so what does that mean? Well, that means 80% of the households can make demands of them that they do things the right way. And so this report lays some of that stuff out. So I won't go through the whole thing. There's 65 pages of all kinds of, hey, this is what we're doing. Great, great. But what I want to show you is they made all these claims, and their analysts and their investors said, hey, prove it. What do I mean by that? They came to us and said, can you attest on some of the statements that we're making? And so that's something that Ernst & Young does, right? And that's on the assurance side, kind of like the audit side. And that's just one thing that we do around ESG. But this is really important, and it's important because companies are opening their kimono like they've never done before. And again, this is something that you probably expect as a consumer and in the generation that you're from, you expect that. That's not the way that business was previously run. And so businesses are uncomfortable showing everybody everything about it. Where do I source my peanuts in their case? Where do I source my coffee beans? How do I employ folks in Orrville, Ohio, but then beyond? How do we incentivize them? What's the impact we have in our community in Orrville, Akron, and Northeast Ohio? They're telling everyone about all of that, which is pretty amazing, okay? So I just want to show you this is what companies are doing in order to make sure that they meet the demands of folks like yourself. They're also willing to do this, and I'm going to read something. So at the top it reads, we believe it's critically important that we understand the expectations of our constituents around key corporate responsibility initiatives. In this spirit, we conducted an issues assessment which informed our evolved Thriving Together agenda. So they reached out to, on the left-hand side, you can see this column of people. They reached out to consumers, suppliers, employees, investors, and said, what do you think we should be doing differently? I mean, what do you do with the information you get back? Because you have to do it, right? So this is what they got back. And so I spent some time with the morning group, the engineering class, talking about the things that maybe they wouldn't have thought that they could help, but supply chain resilience, packaging, right? The business side, you guys can help in a lot of different ways, right? But the point is these problems are becoming a little bit bigger, they're a little bit hairier, they're a little bit more cross-functional across the organization, and you're starting to get to where the minor plays a part here, okay? Okay, one last thing from this, I just highlighted, look at what they're willing to tell everyone. Look at all the things we do with the environment. What about our employees? What about the community in which we live? It's a lot of information, okay? And so if I go back to, you're gonna be entering the workforce, hopefully working for a company that they're struggling to figure out what people want, how to go get it, how to build their company to be able to process that, obtain it, report on it. So you're in an interesting spot to be able to help them. All right, let me go back for a second. Okay. So again, those that are familiar with EY and in the business world, let me switch. This is a website that we show companies, hey, you're interested in understanding how does ESG impact your organization across finance, tax, legal, IT, sustainability, human capital. All these green boxes is where ESG plays across all of those verticals of an organization. Social, across all of those verticals. Then if you want to switch over, and this is what I showed the engineering folks, well, what about R&D and innovation? How are we making our packaging? What about sourcing and procurement? What about manufacturing, supply chain and logistics, sales and marketing, connecting to the customer? What about the post-sales, worried about disposal and recycling? The engineering folks play a huge role in that, right? And so as you can see again, look at all those green boxes. Okay, so the reason I show you this is just when we meet with a company that wants to understand how are we going to do this, we say, well, you better get ready because this is pretty involved, right? And this crosses across every one of the functions of your organization. So you need to be able to speak multiple languages in order to understand this and to solve these problems, okay? All right. Okay, so why am I here? So a year ago, as part of the AAG, myself, some of the other folks from the Big Four, other accounting firms, consulting firms, companies and nearby, Cintas, Progressive, Western Southern, they're all like, you know what? Yes, ESG, we have to solve this. Our constituents are demanding. We don't have the people. We don't have the competencies. And so we basically looked at the accountancy department and said, so what are you doing about it, guys? Because I can't train everyone myself, and I want to keep hiring from Miami University. About 7 years ago, Ernst & Young hit its highest mark. We hired 100 people from this campus in a year. So I mean, the amount of people that these companies are pulling off this campus, specifically Farmer, is enormous, right? And so we want to make sure that you guys are better equipped to serve create the solutions for the problems of tomorrow, right? Skate to where the puck's gonna be, not where the puck was, all right? And so when we talked to the accountancy department and to the dean of the business school, we said, you need to get on this because we need to start earlier than when they get hired to train them. We just don't have enough time. And so that's when it started. Some of you may have had 221 in the spring. I came in the spring and kind of talked about some of the opportunities of accounting, working outside of, in business in the accounting world. And I ended that talk to say, if you really want to know where the biggest opportunity is, again, I didn't know I'd be here now, but I said, it's in ESG. because like 90% of my clients have no idea how to solve this. And again, it seems so weird because you guys, it's so natural for you. But that's why you're going to be the answer, all right? Okay, so I need both accounting and engineering. So now our consulting practice needs those engineers. In fact, my audit practice needs someone that understands engineering, because we're now reporting on things like greenhouse gas emissions and water withdrawal, right? And those are different concepts. Okay, so what does this mean for you? It means when you go to find a job and you go to career fair and you bring your resume and you meet with all these wonderful companies and you hand them a resume and you're just looking to stick out, right? All of us want to do that, right? We all want to differentiate ourselves. It used to be, again, I've been down here recruiting for 13 years. It used to be that if you had an international exchange, if you were part of the business fraternity, that allowed you to stick out a little bit from some of your peers. This minor is what would help, because everyone does those programs nowadays, and other schools have caught up to Miami. But this is a program that isn't offered at undergrad level. It's all at graduate level, because this problem is still so new that we're still trying to figure out how to solve for it. So I'm so excited that my alma mater has come up with this minor, because I do feel like it equips those sitting in this room within the Farmer Business School to be able to have an appreciation for the problems that you're going to be solving. They're multidisciplinary. The companies that you guys are going to be looking to hire you are looking for agile athletes. They're looking for people that speak multiple languages, not just the minor or the language of your major. Because the problems of tomorrow are way more complicated and they're cross-disciplinary function. And if you don't at least have an appreciation for it, it'll be really, really hard to set yourself apart. So that's what I came for, is to make sure that you guys know, if I were you, if I was sitting in your chair today and I wanted to differentiate myself with the employers, whether it's consulting firms, accounting firms, big corporates, private companies, I would want to differentiate myself, okay? So the accounting and engineering department put together a QR code. If you're interested in any more information about this, use your phone, scan it. I think you just have to submit your name and they'll give you the information. If I remember right, the minor is 18 hours. It's 9 accounting, 9 engineering. And so really the commitment from the accounting or the business folks in most cases is really only the 9 engineering, because most of the classes are I shouldn't say that. I think one is managerial accounting, which maybe non-accounting majors wouldn't take. But the commitment from an accounting major, I mean, who's a double major accounting and finance, or who plans to be? Anyone in here? Maybe it's too early to know. Is it too early to know in this group? Okay, I just say it because, like, again, in the 13 years I've recruited, I had one major, right? Because I also came in with no AP credits. You guys probably came in with AP credits, and you've been willing to take more, go get more. And so we see a lot more double majors. And so I guess I would say if you're thinking about this, this is a pretty attractive minor to put on your resume. So any questions that maybe I can answer, or anything that I can clarify from the information? I started the engineering, well, at 8 a.m. they were a little sleepy, but at the one at 11:40, I started by saying, any of you interested in getting a job making $100,000? That got a few people's attention, a few people sat up. But that's what you guys are looking at. And it's not just that you'll make good money as you get out of school. It's that you'll rise up. Because again, go back to, if you have both business and an appreciation for engineering, you know how to manage people, manage the way a business works, but then you also know how to solve really complicated problems. You know how to use technical details, at least an appreciation for it. And that allows you to rise up the ranks. And so the same thing I said to the engineering folks, if you can have a little bit of business acumen, those in your organization that are looking for someone to be able to manage people in addition to just solving problems will look at you differently.